For over 20 years, our customers have turned to us to help them make smart decisions and find greater success. It's why we come to work each day and why we dig a little deeper into the numbers and what they mean. It's why we sweat the details, such as methodology, sample size, and meeting customer objectives.
By getting the details right, this can mean anything from taking into account the margin of error in our quantitative consumer surveys, writing effective questionnaires, or just brainstorming with our analyst team on hot topics or market sizing estimates.
Our industry analysts are hand-selected to provide nuanced industry expertise on the many topics of travel, tourism, and hospitality.
These folks are dug deep into their travel market and provide a unique perspective on the trends, technologies, and cultural nuances that make each country unique.
Whether you become a research subscriber, undertake a custom research project, or purchase PhocusWright's individual reports, our rigorous analysis and fierce independence will provide the clarity and confidence you need to make the right strategic decision.
Da oltre 18 anni è una delle menti più brillanti che sta dietro al grandissimo lavoro di PhocusWright, che fa sia per le sue conference negli Stati Uniti che anche per BTO. Chiamo sul palco per la prima volta Lorraine Sileo.
The year is 1998. That's the year PhocusWright started tracking the global online travel industry. And we had a very easy job then, because there wasn't a lot to track except a few travel upstarts and some very poorly executed airline websites. But consumers embraced the do-it-yourself model, and the online travel industry was born. This is one of my favorite cartoons from the 1990s. It depicts some of the hysteria that took place when we were so bold as to predict that every home would be connected to the internet and every household would have a personal computer. What we didn't know is that they would have three, and that all three devices, the smartphone, the tablet, and the desktop laptop, would be used throughout every phase of the travel search, shop, buy process, from destination selection to travel shopping to booking. With the rise of the internet came the demise of the traditional travel industry. Tour operators were gone, travel agencies were dead. Online travel was going to take over the world, as well as online travel agencies. And even PhocusWright joined in the fray with a challenge to the industry to either eat or be eaten by the competition. Fast forward to today, here we are, 2015. So what's happened? What's reality? Where are we? We know that travel agencies and tour operators are still here, but they've had to restructure, regroup, partner, and embrace the digital future. If you haven't, you wouldn't be sitting in this room today. We also know that online travel agencies have not taken over the world. As a matter of fact, they represent just 10% of the global travel industry. Giancarlo invited me to give you some numbers, so that's what I plan to do. Let's start with this one. $500 billion US is booked in online travel globally today. And 17 years later, the industry is still growing in double digits, 11% year over year. 37% of the world's travel is booked online. And the market capitalization for three of the largest companies Expedia, Priceline, and TripAdvisor totals $90 billion US dollars. What's happening in Italy, a little closer to home? 8 billion euro booked online this year. Also continuing to grow in double digits. 1.5 billion of that will be booked through mobile devices. And it's over 1 million bookable rooms, makes Italy the largest hospitality marketplace in Europe. Okay, so online travel agencies did not take over the world, but 2 of them did take over the online travel agency marketplace: Priceline and Booking and Expedia. So Priceline, through its Booking.com brand, has been expanding globally. And Expedia, not just organically, but also through acquisition of Travelocity and Orbit in the US, Wotif in Australia. As a matter of fact, these 2 online travel agencies represent nearly 2/3 of all the world's online travel agency gross bookings. And by the way, in the US, they have a 93% share. But what did we not see coming? We made a lot of predictions at PhocusWright, but I think as we were all worrying about online travel agencies and also what was Google going to do, maybe we didn't see this coming 10 years ago, right? The sharing economy, alternative accommodations, ride sharing, taxi hailing, whatever you want to call it, these brands and many, many more have changed the face of the travel industry forever. These figures are for the US, where it wasn't as popular to rent a home as it is in Europe. As a matter of fact, in 2010, only 8% of US travelers did so. But over the next 4 years, that figure is now up to 1/4 of all US travelers renting an accommodation. And it's not just quirky millennials looking for an alternative travel experience. No, it's travelers, just like you and I, who shop just like everyone else, who have considered all these other types of properties in their decision-making set. As a matter of fact, only 6% of Airbnb travelers considered only an Airbnb before renting one. So, not to be left out, Booking.com is also in the private accommodations business. Claims about 1/3 of its properties are non-hotel properties. Claims that it's as big, if not larger, than Airbnb in that regard. And of course, not to be left out either is Expedia recently announcing its $3.9 billion acquisition of HomeAway, really the largest provider of upscale private accommodations, and plans to put HomeAway's 1.2 million properties, making them bookable through the Expedia, Orbit, Hotels.com, and its other brands. So, should hotels be worried? That's the question, because the hospitality marketplace is very healthy. Everyone's enjoying very good business. So we say, well, why worry about Airbnb? I'm doing quite well. Well, I beg to differ. Think about the impact of what this business, $100 billion US dollar business, can have, because this is not all coming from new travelers. There must be some share shift taking place from the traditional hospitality market into this alternative accommodation space. So something we all need to think about. Okay, something that maybe we didn't see coming, although I know, Philip, wherever you are, you will say that you saw this one coming, is TripAdvisor an online travel agency? Well, we know that TripAdvisor is now the merchant of record. It is assisting the booking through its instant booking program. So now TripAdvisor will take the booking, do the transaction, and then pass that on to its partner, whether that be a supplier partner like a Best Western or a Marriott, or whether it be its OTA partner, Priceline. It's a great example of a company, right, that was always on that top of the funnel in terms of inspiration and traveler reviews, then worked its way down the funnel with meta search, and now providing the transaction. And has our worst nightmare come true? Is Google an online travel agency too? Well, with its Book on Google and commission program, it too is facilitating the transaction and kind of taking that to passing that over to its partner. Again, a supplier partner or also its OTA partner, Expedia, to then fulfill that transaction and continue having that dialogue and that relationship with the customer. So a TripAdvisor and Google OTAs, you decide. Okay, so how is Italy faring in all this? It's always kind of a little behind when it comes to technology in relation to some of the other countries in Europe. So what you see in this slide is the percent of all travel booked online. So in Italy, that was 38% of all travel. That will be the figure in 2015. But that compares to almost half, or 47%, for all of Europe. It's also one of the most dependent markets on online travel agencies. So you see on the left, and this is that 8 billion euro figure that was online bookings, online travel bookings. 59% of that will go through OTAs in Italy versus just 43% for all of Europe. So why so dependent on online travel agencies? Well, I think you know the answer. Fragmentation, just apartments, resorts, inns, bed and breakfasts, really one of the most fragmented markets. As a matter of fact, hospitality markets, matter of fact, less than a quarter of all properties are hotels, and of that, just 2% are chains. To put that in another perspective, when we look at it in terms of number of rooms, just 11% are hotels. And the average number of rooms in a non-hotel property in Italy is just 3.3. I'm going to throw out a few more numbers, because I know Giancarlo wanted me to throw out more numbers at you, from our most recent independent lodging study. 98% of all total properties in Italy are independents. Independents represent 89% of all rooms, 84% of total gross bookings, and 81% of total online supplier direct gross bookings. So that's a lot. Huge independent marketplace. And that's a lot of numbers. There's a lot more. But what we want to do is put them in perspective, talking to no other than the founder of PhocusWright and also my mentor and friend, Philip Wolf.
Let's move our chairs.
Yeah, let's get closer. So, Philip, what made you decide to launch PhocusWright in 1994? I mean, we started research, as I told everyone, in 1998. You actually started the company 4 years earlier.
Yeah, we launched PhocusWright in 1994. Think about what you were doing in 1994. This was pre-web, and I know when I speak to a lot of people, they think that taking risk is a very difficult thing. I had 2 children in nappies, diapers, but I ran a travel agency starting in 1989, and I could see technology was going to change it.
Didn't you see the first online booking?
In 1991, we had our first online booking. But here's the other thing I saw. All the professionals and experts in the travel industry all over the world kept telling Philip, you're wrong, you're crazy, you don't understand the travel industry, you don't know the difference between Italy and India, the mean, cruel, calculating computers will never revolutionize travel. And I think it was the combination of technology and all the professionals' resistance made me bet. It was a good bet.
So I'm going to bring up one of the slides from our old. This was everything was still in black and white when we started the research.
What year was that slide? 1998.
This was probably 1998, 1999 perhaps. And what would you say, are you surprised with where the industry is now? It's almost 20 years later.
Mostly no, because you had to be crazy to launch PhocusWright. Back then, online travel was a €0 billion industry. And I thought it would grow, and so it certainly did. It didn't grow. The surprises were which things grew faster than others. I don't think back then we knew that hotels and accommodations would be the dominant aspect of the industry. But mostly no. I guess if anything, I thought it would even go faster.
Right. So what prediction are you most proud of?
I would say looking everybody in the eye in 1994 and saying, even though 99% of the marketplace disagrees, that consumers would love being empowered to search, shop, and buy for their own travel. That they actually did not like having to go through gatekeepers. So it's so obvious now, but I want everyone to appreciate how pioneering and unpopular it was then, but that to use that same thought process today to keep looking forward.
Well, I don't know if everyone in the audience remembers how excruciating it was to actually make an online travel booking years ago.
You did need a doctorate degree in the early days, but it's the same thing with ATMs, with cash machines. The early ones, I remember in business school studying those. So I think people need to have an appreciation for when something new comes along, how the processes take. Like when the Apple Watch launched, and a lot of people are criticizing it, it's like, it's the first one, the first version. And we knew this with automobiles and bicycles and airplanes and cash machines and the same thing. It will never stop.
Where's your Apple Watch?
No watch on stage. Doesn't want to interfere with my microphone.
Okay.
So.
Here we go. So we know you got a lot of things right, and we know you made some very good predictions, but what did you miss? You had to miss something.
Yeah, if you get 70% right, you're doing really, really, really well. The area of travel I predicted incorrectly the most would be corporate managed travel. Yes, Expedia launched Egencia, and Orbitz has Orbitz for Business. But honestly, Lorraine, I didn't think 20 years later, American Express, CWT, BCD, HRG would still dominate managed travel. We call them TMCs today. So corporate travel changed, but it didn't go to the online players as much as it shifted from the travel department to finance and procurement. But I would say that was my biggest thing I missed predicting.
So that's interesting. So what you are saying is that the brands that were still the offline brands in corporate travel are still dominating, still thriving, but that's not the case.
This was amazing. When I used to give speeches in the early 90s and get people to understand they need to embrace the internet, the web, and technology, there were other categories. So yes, Amazon started in books, but book retailers still fought back, Barnes and Nobles and Borders. Same thing with toys and stock trading. But in travel, every online leader was a new player, and all of the offline players essentially said, sorry, I'm not going to play online. So it's really amazing
Big
if you think
mistake.
back. Big mistake. They all had their reasons and their excuses, and they would explain to me with their suits and ties why I didn't understand that and understand that. But all the major leisure travel agencies and tour operators have a fraction of the influence today than they did, say, back 10 to 15 years ago. And that it didn't have to be that way.
So let's talk about some of those companies, because one of them, of course, is Amazon, that with its online presence, I guess you could say replaced Barnes and Noble, one of a traditional bookstore, which is shuttering.
And I also remember in the beginning, people disagreed with me when I said Amazon would start selling things other than books.
Right,
They said, no way.
So they
said,
sell a lot more than books, and I know that. But Bezos also backed out of the travel space,
Yes.
right? Had big plans, and then they did a turnaround.
So
Why is that?
Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, earlier this year launched a travel product, if you will. It was in their local section, and it was related to, I think, hotels and packages. And only after a few months, Amazon canceled their travel strategy. Most people said, see, I told you, it's not that easy. Amazon can't sell travel. So people asked me, was I surprised Amazon pulled out so quickly? Yes, I was surprised, but I'm convinced they haven't left travel. They just launched, made a lot of mistakes, kind of like Disney in Paris the first time. And instead of being proud and keeping the product out there, they canceled it, retreated, learned a lot, and I think they will launch.
So you think they're coming back?
Yeah, and one of the reasons...
So don't rest too easy. Amazon's coming back.
If somebody's in the audience saying, oh good, Amazon's out. And one place to look is in China, Alibaba, which sort of invented what we call marketplace. They're much bigger than Amazon. We saw how much Alibaba sold last month on Singles Day.
Yes,
I think it was over 14 billion euros in one day. 14 billion euros in one day online. And they have a travel business called AliTrip. And it's a marketplace. So there's over 30,000 airlines, hotels, agencies, tour operators, etc., that have stores on AliTrip inside of the Alibaba platform. And they sell a lot of travel. So Amazon sees that. I think they'll be back.
I think what's so interesting too about that story in China is when you sell multiple products. For example, you see that someone bought diapers 10 years ago, and then you say, oh, time to sell them Disney. Yeah. So you could start to cross-sell products. You get a lot more information on the customer.
That's why it's important to invest early and not use profits as your immediate metric. Because if you insist on only doing things that are immediately profitable, you never learn. It would be the equivalent of a parent being angry at a baby because they can't walk, right? No, you embrace the baby. First they sit up, then they crawl, then they stumble, then they walk. And there are serious parallels in business, but unfortunately, this requires leadership. And you have to make decisions, and it's important.
So I wanted to bring up this slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about Airbnb and Uber. And I guess the first question is, we use the word disruption a lot to describe these types of companies. Is that the right word to use?
I think so. I love the word disruption because it's all about what the customers do, right? So it's not disruptive if you and I invent a new business that's different than everybody else's and we don't get any customers. So the disruption occurs when the customers vote with their wallets, with their money, right? and then it is disruptive. And the reason disruption is the right word is that these companies have looked at the same marketplace but identified a new product or a new approach to get customers to buy more, right? And in Uber and Airbnb's case, it was a combination of technology, mobile real-time technology, and understanding that a person would rent another person's flat if there was a layer of trust. Same thing, if you're driving me, I'm going to get in your car if there's a layer of trust. And to create this global platform of information sharing about ratings and safety records and driver's licenses and how clean the apartment is and photos is trust. So these companies are very disruptive. I would say on the disruptive word, not enough people that run businesses, even if they're little ones, disrupt themselves, right? You really need to go to work every day and disrupt yourself. If you're comfortable, if you think, I'm not a technology business, I'm an agency or a tour operator, or I run a small hotel and I give personal service, right? Therefore, I don't need to do this, then you're comfortable. You've talked yourself into thinking it's okay not to disrupt myself.
So disrupt yourself or someone else will do it for you.
Yes, or another way is, I mean, how many people think cannibalism is clap your hands if you think, if you launch a product that cannibalizes your own business, if you do something that cannibalizes your own business, clap if you think that's a bad thing. Clap if you think it's a good thing. Yeah, so intellectually, we know it's a good thing. Now watch this. I want you to clap if you actually cannibalize your own business. See, that's the problem. That's what I mean about leadership and decision making. It's no good to sit around and intellectually say, I need to disrupt my own business.
You need to act.
You need to disrupt your own business because if you don't, the marketplace is changing. To me, that's one of the definitions of leadership. Not having a fancy office, not having a title or a salary. It's what do you do to make your business more relevant today to yesterday for your customers and your employees.
So back to Uber and Airbnb, they didn't disrupt anything because they just created themselves, right, from scratch. They are disruptors. And with this slide, what we're looking at is their market cap compared to the incumbents, or whatever you want to call, Expedia and Priceline. There's actually two giants, but also two perhaps more traditional players. So do you think that Uber and Airbnb should have a higher market cap or higher valuation than Expedia and Priceline?
Yeah. First of all, I love that you called Expedia and Priceline traditional players. For so many years, they weren't a traditional player. Do I think Uber and Airbnb are worth roughly what Priceline and Expedia are?
It's very close.
Yes, I do. Because, again, they have created businesses that customers all over the world love, right? And it's not like they're selling drugs or sex or something like that. These are basic things. It's very hard to do, and it's really, really important. So I'm going to interview somebody from Uber tomorrow. Everybody likes to complain about them, but what Uber has done for reducing traffic, for reducing environmental greenhouse gas emissions from carbon monoxide, what they've done to alleviate parking, what they've done to reduce the number of drunk drivers going home after dinner, the list goes on. So, there's reasons they've gotten so big, and we can get all caught up in the regulatory side. But I also agree, both companies are amazing, but I always ask this, let me try to ask the question. So, if you have a job at a company and you're responsible for mergers and acquisitions, for buying other companies, sometimes we say M&A, the title of that person is you're head of corporate development. So I want you all to pretend for a minute that you are the head of corporate development for your company. You have a lot of cash and you're going to make an acquisition. You can buy either Uber or Airbnb. Exact same terms, cash, interest rates, payment schedule, all the terms of the deal are identical, except you only have enough money to buy one. So I'm going to poll you. So you either buy Uber or you buy Airbnb. There's no 50-50, right? So ready? Clap if you would buy Airbnb. Clap if you would buy Uber. So we're a research company. I think 62, 50-50?
I thought 50-50, maybe
A little
48,
louder.
52.
Yeah, so it's even. When asked that question, I would buy
We have
Uber.
question. Yeah, we have questions from the expert table,
Yeah.
I think. Can I get some light for the expert table? Otherwise, nobody will see them. Little light.
We're going to get a question there.
Yeah.
And you can see we've got plenty of time.
Wow.
Rodolfo.
Wow.
Good morning.
Is that how wonderful Lorraine
No,
looks?
I was just testing a microphone. That's it. No, we techie people are wonderfully excited by all these things, and we think of the world as a single environment. But I'm Italian, so I'm very worried about the situation in Italy, because you always show us wonderful growth of these things, but we're growing on nothing. The size of our digital market in tourism is still one of the smallest in the world. So would you see any chance for us to grow really?
So, we talked about this a lot last year, if I could take the lead. Listen.
Yeah, but we're still here.
Italy is a brand, right? The brand is worth so much money, it's impossible to recreate, right? So instead of complaining, right, you own collectively, that's the beauty of this brand, a brand that is the most valuable brands in the world, right? And every day, there's over 1 billion travelers this year, over 1 billion travelers that will cross a border. So it's all up to the travel and tourism industry of Italy on what are they going to do to attract and retain more customers. It's your choice. The travelers are traveling, but if they don't go to Italy, they will go somewhere else, right? And more will travel. So that's why I said you need more self-responsibility to leverage your amazing brand. Believe me, Italy is a more amazing brand than Dubai or Vietnam. Yet those two brands, for example, are attracting a lot of customers. We have to reinvent ourselves, give people reasons to want to come and visit again and do new things and different things. And you have to not believe that, you have to do that. And so of course, there's hope, but there's a lot of work to do. Hoping doesn't work. Work works.
Larry, you have a question?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Larry.
A question on a topic you didn't speak to at all, and that is Facebook and social media. And what impact do you think social media has on travel to Italy?
Take that.
Impact of social media on travel in general, of course, is huge. And you're going to hear from Facebook, and Facebook advertising is really making an impact and really starting to change the way we think about advertising and messaging to our audience. And of course, there's so much visual and there's so much beauty to Italy that it only continues to benefit from the use of social media. So I think we have to say that social media is certainly a democracy, meaning that it benefits all destinations, obviously, not one versus another. It's up to everyone in this room in their own individual effort to contribute to the discussion, to the chatter, and to the community for...
Another great example is a lot of Italian marketers may not look to social media as a way to get more brand recognition, more eyeballs, and more customers, but I'll give you a great example in this category. There's a small airline in Canada called WestJet. And last year, their advertising agency presented them with a bunch of ideas, and they fired the ad agency. And a bunch of employees had this idea before Christmas to go to Toronto Airport and interview passengers before they get on the plane. What would you like for Christmas? What would you like for Christmas? And the people got on the plane, and they did a long haul. This flight went to Vancouver, so it was almost 4 hours. The second the plane took off, they emailed all the passenger names and the gift requests to the WestJet team at the Vancouver airport, the staff. And they got into vans and went driving around Vancouver buying dolls and books and televisions and things like that. They came back to the airport, wrapped everything, and when the passengers arrived at baggage claim, one suitcase came out, another suitcase came out, and then a box wrapped with a ribbon, and then another box. All these different boxes and suitcases with names on them. And they videoed the whole thing of everybody opening these boxes. I forgot how much, over 10 million downloads. The production cost was almost zero, and no ad agency. This is the beauty of social media when you can effect some of these ideas. It's very disruptive, to use that word.
I think we have another question from the expert table. Diane?
Yes. You mentioned earlier that, let's say, in your prediction, you hadn't seen how the managed corporate travel would grow. So I'm wondering now that we're so much down the road, if you can see how this will develop, whether you think the online will take over the TMCs, the travel management companies, or how much?
Yeah, so what happened is technology did reinvent the TMCs, just in a different way. So there's really no more travel departments or travel managers that live in an independent department or report up to human resources. It's all now in finance and procurement. And the TMCs don't make commissions really anymore or overrides. The billing is more like a law firm, a doctor, or an accounting firm. So everything is measured and analyzed and reported. A lot of the calculations are done in the cloud, risk management, policy compliance. So it has been taken over by technology, just a very different way than leisure travel. But the data, I loved Timothy Hughes from Agoda. He said, you have to love nerds. You need to have at least one person work with you that's a nerd, a mathematician, a data analyst. If you don't, but if you really think it's not important, it will hurt you. Yeah.
We have also a question from the floor. Yaya.
Yes, Yaya.
Hi there, Philip. Question, I think Lorraine mentioned that a little bit. The elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is called Google, okay? I think we've seen 2 weeks ago in the US just a little bit about what they're trying to do, launching in the travel space. So, Philip, I'm interested to see what you really think, knowing that a lot of people are scared, mainly the big OTAs, in terms of the impact, they will have on their advertising and all of that sort of things. Second question, do you think that it's not easy for Google to just buy TripAdvisor and they will have everything sorted out?
Oh, that's a great loaded question. So TripAdvisor and Google OTAs I wanted your opinion on that.
Yeah, so yes, right now TripAdvisor is an OTA. Let me repeat that.
They say they're not, of course.
They don't say that anymore.
Yeah,
not anymore. They are an OTA, they're IATA accredited, and they can collect commissions. Here's the question, what's Google going to do, right? So let's go back for a second. The marketplace changes very fast, right? I go to these big hotel internal meetings where externally the executives hate Airbnb, and then internally we'll have 40 vice presidents and managers, and I'll say, how many of you have booked on Airbnb? And everyone raises their hands. And then I say, how many of you have an apartment and you're a host? And half of them raise their hand, right? So people that sit around and say, I don't think Priceline Group will buy Kayak, right? I don't think a low-cost carrier will ever charge for a bag. I don't think Expedia will ever buy Trivago, that Booking.com will ever partner with TripAdvisor, that Accor, a hotel company, would ever buy Fast Booking or launch an OTA itself. I don't think Google will ever launch instant booking because they get over 2 billion euros a year from the travel tourism, and on and on and on. I'm telling you, don't waste your time asking and answering those questions. Why? Because the marketplace changes and good, healthy businesses need to keep adapting. And if people don't like it, go work somewhere else. It's normal.
Google needs to make airline commissions? I mean, does it really need that? Does it need that revenue?
Google makes an enormous amount of money in the travel sector. But also things change. Whether it's a commission or an override or CPC, cost per click, or CPA, CPA, cost per acquisition. CPA is a modern name for a commission, right? So tomorrow someone, or today speaking from Google, Google's latest travel products are very, very exciting. The customers will like them. Industry players will not. And one of the reasons industry players will not is that they spend a lot of money advertising on Google, right? But it's more emotional than business. So that's generally how I answer. And specifically, it was a big surprise when Booking.com announced the partnership with TripAdvisor. It really irritated a lot of the hoteliers that had just signed up for TripAdvisor's instant booking. I predict you'll see something similar happen very soon between Expedia and Google. So you have, if you picture me, over here, Booking.com and TripAdvisor, transaction and search.
So we're starting to see alliances.
Yeah, and Expedia, I think, with Google. I'm predicting. I don't know if that's going to happen. So that's what I think. We need to get on with it, keep innovating, keep disrupting our own businesses. And if you focus on delighting your customers, you should always win.
So it took about 20 years to go from terrestrial to web. What's next?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big advocate right now that the desktop, laptop, web-based aspect of travel has really peaked and flattened out. And most of the next growth wave will come from app only, not mobile web, not a browser on a smartphone, but with apps. I sit on a board of one company, a travel company that's app only, called Hopper. And chat, especially in Asia. I had breakfast with Charlie Lee 2 weeks ago in Singapore, our travel analyst in China. He has this travel industry recruiting tool, and he said, Philip, I just launched it. I skipped desktop, I skipped app. It's on WeChat only. Now, some of you might be sitting there saying, Philip, I don't understand what you're saying. How can you have a travel business just on chat? How can you have a travel business just on an app? And I answer, that's exactly what people said to me in 1994 when I said you could have a travel business just on the web. So even though you might be uncomfortable or confused or even want to disagree, I would recommend not doing that. That's the beauty of BTO. That's the beauty of these conferences and collaborating, is let's talk about these things. So there's going to be a robust travel industry business on apps and chats platforms, not just desktop and web.
And not just in China.
And not just in China.
Okay.
I've never seen a trend in online travel that just stayed in one country. Never. Never, never.
So, a couple questions. We have another question from our expert.
On this last thing you said, do you mean then we should look real closely at WhatsApp?
WhatsApp, WeChat, yes, Apple's new iMessaging.
So basically
Oh,
Facebook.
Yes, 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 and yes.
Okay, thanks.
But I would ask the question differently. It's not that you should look there, it's you should look at your customers, and your customers will take you there, because this is what they do. It's not something you decide, like one morning taking a shower, right? If you follow your customers, you get a good, and it's free market research to listen to your customers.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Okay. So with so much consolidation going on, is there still room for startups?
Yeah. So there is a lot of
And
consolidation.
you're on a lot of boards, so I
sit
know
on a
you're
lot of
seeing a
boards.
lot of companies emerging.
You know what we mean, consolidation. Starwood and Marriott just merged. You know, Continental and United Airlines, Air France and KLM. Expedia just bought. What if Travelocity, Orbitz, and HomeAway in 7 months? Priceline Group just bought OpenTable, and on and on and on it goes. Of course there's room for innovation, but where you should look is not where the consolidation is occurring, right? If you're innovating in an area that's being consolidated, listen carefully, you're innovating in the wrong area. Consolidation happens when the growth levels start to flatten and the music goes off on the side. No. So there's so much innovation in travel, it will never end. But understand where consolidation is occurring and make sure that's not where your dreams are.
So let's end with this question, Philip. What's next in terms of your 3 predictions for the travel industry?
Anybody want to do the 3 predictions instead of me? No. Okay. I can't get out of this one.
No.
All right. One big area, I'm spending a lot of time in ground transportation. So quickly, all types of ground transportation, buses, municipal buses, intercity buses, trains, light rail, long distance, bus, ride hailing, professional drivers, ferry boats, et cetera, that's water, not ground, but not in the air. All modes of ground transportation, all different types all over the world are going to get so easy and seamless to book that one day soon it'll be as simple as booking air. That's number 1. Trust me on that. Number 2, this is starting in Asia now, but in the hotel space, especially at the 1 and 2 and 3 stars, which are disappearing, there is branding by the room, not by the hotel property. Look at a company called Oyo, O-Y-O in India, branding by the room. And the final one, and then we'll go, is I do think the pressure mounting between hoteliers and intermediaries, OTAs and MetaSearch, is going to get to a boiling point where some interesting things might happen that haven't happened in kind of like what Lufthansa's trying. So
I love
whatever
this
it is.
industry. Just started. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank
Philip
you.
Wolff.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Lorraine. That was wonderful as usual. You're going to see Philip. Philip, of course, will be cooperating me. Lorraine, you will see her tomorrow at the expert table in the afternoon. Grazie.